Before we start, we want to have an activity with you. We are gonna create a word cloud together. So we are gonna ask you to join, to click in the link that Angie is gonna share now in the chat box. So when you click there, you are gonna see this screen and you are gonna find a question. What is causing you the most stress right now? So feel free to answer. For example, you can put money and social media, or family challenges, or lack of opportunities, whatever you feel. And I think it's important for you to know this is completely anonymous. So don't be worried because it's not gonna be linked to your name, but just we want to have this idea of what are the main issues that the community is facing. So click on the link that Angie shared. If you cannot access the link, just write down the answers in the chat box. But ideally, we want to see together how it looks. So we're gonna have 1 minute for that. Click on the link and then just answer the question here. And we're gonna see here together how it looks. Okay, we're seeing here what is worrying and making the community a little bit stressed or worry, or maybe overwhelmed. And I think we can see here that there is something that we have in common. But let's wait a little bit more. Perfect. Let's wait just 20 seconds more. And let's see how this word cloud is showing how the community is feeling regarding the topic of today. Yeah, it's interesting, Vera, to see what's happening, right? And Mar and Kim, because we see that here at the center, we see two words that represent what is feeling like making us feel worry or stress: money and work, uncertainty, workload. There are many things, but I think it's very important to see that we are not alone, because sometimes we ask ourselves, but why this is happening to me? But then I think it's important to be aware that more and more people are facing these kind of challenges, and that we are not together, and joining these kind of sessions is just the first step to face these situations in a better way. Now, deadlines, that's also important. We see here too much work. What do you think, Vera? How do you see, what do you see in this word cloud?
Well, I see a lot of interesting points, obviously, that will give a lot to talk during the session. A lot of concerns around money, which obviously is at the top of the list for freelancers, because there is no steady income. When people, well, we always have to fight for work. I've been a freelancer myself for a short period of time, so I know a little bit about that experience. It's hard being a freelancer, but like Anna said, it's really nice to have this community now to share these feelings. It's also about working alone a little bit, a lone wolf, like sometimes we mention in journalism, also about the investigative journalists. It's a term is also used for that. So yeah, I think that today there'll be a lot around the unstable income, uncertainty around being commissioned, feeling that you have too much work, that you need to be connected all the time and available as well to catch the opportunity. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone's experiences.
Okay, Vera, thank you very much. So guys, now we see we are not alone. We are in this together. So we're gonna continue with our session. Vera, do you want to introduce the session? You're on mute, Vera.
Yes, sorry about that. It happens every now and then. Yes, indeed. So now we're ready to start with our training. And well, like I mentioned, being a freelancer comes with a lot of independence and flexibility, but also with the uncertainties and some loneliness, of course. It can be quite stressful on a daily basis when you have to look for new commissions, chase new opportunities that truly demand you to be 100% available on your social media and your email. So at the same time, it's quite challenging to having to deal with all this when you are alone working by yourself. You don't have a team or a newsroom to get to every day. So it's only natural that this makes you feel tired, overwhelmed, and stressed.
Yes, and this is true, especially after COVID-19. We know because the challenges increased and we are just trying to adapt. We are just trying to find ways to cope with these new situations we have to face. And that's why today we have Mar Cabra and Kim Brice with us. I would like to start with Mar, introducing Mar. Mar is a Pulitzer Prize winner journalist, and she led the data and the tech team that work on the Panama Papers investigation. So Mar, we know that the investigation was successful, but I suppose there was also a downside to it, right, Mar?
Yeah, absolutely, Anna. I was in a path to a very successful career. Winning a Pulitzer as a Spaniard is pretty weird. And, I was 33, getting the Pulitzer with my colleagues of the Panama Papers and the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. And from the outside, everything seemed great. All awards, Panama Papers was the largest investigative collaboration in journalism history. We had great impact. Everything seemed great. And at the same time, I felt very sad inside. I felt unhappy. And I had not realized that, I had been overconnected, overworked. I was working too many hours in a lot of time zones, not getting enough rest, and connected all the time to my devices. And that led me to burnout. And that was the cause of my, unhappiness. And that led me to quitting my job. Everybody thought I was crazy. At some point I thought maybe I'm crazy for doing this, but I really needed to stop and reconnect with myself. And I've been without working in a newsroom for the past 2.5 years. I've recovered from burnout, and I'm happy to talk about my experience because I think we need to visibilize mental health issues. We don't speak much about them. And I'm sharing my time now with others with my experience on digital wellness. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. I want to say that in my recovery, Kim Brice was essential. She was a personal development coach. So I'm very happy to be sharing this session and this course with her.
Yeah, so it's right. Now, on the other hand, we have Kim Brice. I was saying Kim Brice, sorry. I was pronouncing bad your last name wrongly. So Kim Brice is here with us. She is a leadership coach and resilience trainer. And I wanted to ask you, Kim, why you are interested in supporting freelancers that are facing these kind of situations?
Well, I'm interested in supporting journalists in general, but I think freelancers have it extra tough. I'm the kind of girl who used to buy the anthologies of investigative journalism when I was 12 years old or 15 years old. So for whatever reason, I was obsessed with journalism, and I always wanted to be a journalist. And I ended up not becoming a journalist, but working as a freedom of expression and media freedom advocate. And I also worked for a large international private foundation for many years, supporting independent journalism projects and advocacy projects. And through my years and my own development, I became more interested in the people doing the work than the cause. And so my message to you is you are as important as your work. You are as important as your work. And I'm also here because I've been learning and practicing how to navigate acute anxiety, which I've lived with my whole life, how to practice and learn how to self-regulate myself. I experienced enormous amounts of stress during my divorce 5 years ago, where my body didn't know how to relax anymore, and I thought I was going a little cuckoo. Well, I wasn't. And most recently, discovering and learning and teaching myself how to deal with trauma stress, which I never knew I had. From early childhood trauma, but also working in war zones and having a few physical traumas in my life. So that's why I'm here, to share what I know, what I'm practicing, and what I'm still struggling with, by the way.
Thank you, Kim and Mark, for sharing this. And I just want to close this introduction saying that they both together created the self-investigation program, and they've been supporting journalists all across the world during the last months. So thank you for being here. It's an honor to have you here. As I was mentioning before, this is just the opening session of the complete program. We really and kindly invite you to join the rest of the program that are weekly meetups. We're going to share with you the link at the end of the session, but that's the idea, because we want to change habits, we need to practice. And of course, that means that we need to practice not just 1 week or 2 weeks, but a little bit more to try to understand what is happening and to try to put in place all these mechanisms and tools that we are going to learn today. So now we're going to give the floor to Kim and Mar. Remember, guys, that we're going to have 2 moments for the Q&As, but if you have any question, just feel free to write it in the chat box. Vera is going to take track. And when we have these moments for the Q&A, we're going to try to answer as many questions as possible. So Mark, Kim, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna and Vera. And I really want to thank EJC for putting this in the program and taking care of well-being of journalists. It's a very important time to talk about this. And the first part of well-being starts with us, not being fatigued in this meeting. So we don't want you to have Zoom fatigue. Very important that you just take care of yourself in this session. You don't have to be staring at the screen all the time. Ideally, in order to be present, try to have devices away and email closed. And, just feel free to just look away if you need to really try to soak in and be present with us today. What we're gonna do in this session is focus mostly on stress. And the reason why we're focusing on stress is because most of the physical, mental, and emotional complaints and ailments are the effect of subjecting ourselves to too many stressors for too long. And that has an effect in our mental health and well-being. I don't know if you know, but the World Health Organization has classified stress as the health epidemic of the 21st century. And that's why we're really going to talk today about stress. Us journalists are not superhuman and are not immune to this problem and this issue. And actually, I want to share my screen so you see a survey that was done by the International Federation of Journalists during the outbreak around March, April. They were asking people in their network, how has your work been affected by the outbreak? And you can see there are men and women. And really, if you look at the largest bar, it is increased anxiety and stress. And you probably realize something else too, which is that women feel that that's affecting them more than men. And that situation is actually probably happening right now as we speak, because even though we have, we're freer with movement right now, we still live in pandemic times. And right now it's actually, we're starting to see the effects of that stress and all that, trauma, collective trauma that we've been living in the past months. So basically, we're also going to talk about, stressors, what causes us stress, and also about technology. Technology is a big stressor, and we're going to talk about some ways where you can deal with it. That's why we really encourage you to take devices away, turn them off, give yourself this hour, an hour and a half of time to yourself, give this gift to yourself, and jump with us into this experience, because this is an experiential session. And that's why we're going to start with some exercise, an exercise that Kim is going to lead us with.
Thanks, Mar. Welcome, everyone. So if you get anything from this session, it's stop and take a conscious pause. So I'm going to lead you through that, if that's okay. And what's key is dropping the knife. And what I mean by that is you pause, and I'm going to invite you to check in with yourself and dropping any judgment about how you feel. The first part of getting well is compassion and acceptance of, you know what, I'm exhausted right now, or I'm really happy right now while everyone around me feels like shit. So whatever it might be, I'd like to, and I'm going to ask you to invite you to close your eyes. The reason why is because we put a lot of our attention out. So it helps bring your attention inward, and it helps you feel. For some of us who are not accustomed to feeling ourselves and our bodies, it helps to close your eyes. So if it's okay for you, I'd like to invite everyone to close your eyes and to just settle in and get comfortable in your seat. And if you don't want to close your eyes, rest your eyes somewhere in front of you, not looking at anything in particular. And ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? And if you're not sure, here are 3 markers for you. So check in with, what's that level of tension in my body right now, between 1 and 5. 5 being I've got a lot of tension, 1 being not too much, and dropping the knife, no judgment. The other is check in with your breath. Very important barometer. The rhythm of your breath right now. You don't need to change anything. Is it shallow? Is it deep? Just checking in. And last but least, heartbeat. And if you're not sure, you can place your hand on your chest and feel your heart. It's good to know what's going on inside, because if you don't know, you can't change anything. Just taking a couple of deep breaths if you like. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thanks for going along, everyone.
And as you open your eyes, we want to invite you to look at the screen. We've been checking in with ourselves for a few minutes. This is what happened on the internet in the meantime. This is just some statistics, some facts on what happens on the internet in 1 minute. In 1 minute, 4.7 million videos are watched on YouTube. 59 million messages are sent on Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. Around 200,000 people tweet. This is the world we live in. Bombarding messages all around from a lot of sources, a lot of information, and a lot of types. All these notifications at the same time. And this is the world all of us live in, but especially journalists, because most of these sources that I've put on the screen are actually exactly that, sources for us to be good journalists, to make sense of. And we actually have to do triage to make sense of what's happening, to tell stories to our audience. So we have an extra level of stress. And that's why today we need to understand better how our stress works and what we can do about it. Kim.
So we want to start with explaining stress. And we won't get in this session to all of the topics you mentioned, But we will get to many of them in the meetups. Just know that. We will deal with the top ones in the meetups. So what are we talking about here? So Mar, you can bring up the slide. So there's stressors, and you guys mentioned them. We saw them in the cloud, the things that are stressing you out. And those things trigger a stress reaction in us. So stress is what our body, mind, and emotions do automatically when we perceive a situation as exceeding our abilities or a situation that feels threatening or overwhelming. It's what our body, minds, and emotions do automatically. So you can take the slide off, Mar, for a second. So this is the dance that happens in us. Something happens, usually something, our body reacts, and then that affects how we think, how we feel, how we interact, and it dictates often what we do. So let us experience that. So if you're willing to go for a little experiment with me, I'm going to invite you once again to close your eyes. And the reason why I'm doing that, it just helps you feel better and just focus on yourself. So I'm going to take you a little exercise so you can feel for yourself that dance and how it happens in us. So I'm willing to bet that most of us, a lot of us feel tension in our shoulders. So I'm going to use that example, okay? So I'll invite you now to close your eyes and just listen to my voice and let it guide you. I'd like to invite everyone to lift your shoulders up towards your ears and lift it up until it feels unpleasant and as much as you're able to tolerate. And stay there. Stay there. I know it doesn't feel good, but that's the point right now. So take a moment to notice your breath right now. Take a moment to notice if anything else is tense in your body, maybe your face, maybe your chest, maybe your belly. Now imagine that you're interviewing someone and roll the film in your head. Imagine you're interviewing someone with this tension in your body. To what degree are you connected to the person you're speaking to? How connected do you think you'll feel? What's the mood you're going to bring to the conversation? How open-minded and curious, present are you going to be? And now slowly as you can, I want to invite you to bring and invite your shoulders down, 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 down. Keep your eyes closed. And notice what happens to the breath as you just brought your shoulders down. Imagine you're interviewing someone now. What mood are you bringing to that conversation? How different is that from just 30 seconds ago? How connected do you think you'll be to that person? Notice the difference from 30 seconds ago. How open, curious, present do you think you might be? When you're ready, you can open your eyes. And if you need to stretch or shake or just let it go, you can even clean yourself off. I like to do this. This is a really nice practice to like clean that energy off. Yep. Can you feel that? So I hope everybody noticed just the difference it made, right? And the thing is, the crazy thing is a lot is happening in our body unconsciously. We don't even feel it because often we don't know. We're never taught to pay attention. We're never taught to feel our body. And this affects how we think, how we feel, how we perceive the world. So just give me a hands up. Did people sense that? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. So I'm not going to spend any more time on that. And we're going to come back to this in a meetup because it truly is fascinating and it's worth the time to discover how this works in you. So what I want to go to next is, I have no idea. Oh yeah, stress is not bad. So let's demystify stress. Stress is not a bad thing. In fact, it's a very important thing. So the issue is too much stress, too much of the time becomes problematic. So Mar, if you can bring up the slide. So look to the left bottom of the slide. This is like not enough stress. And when we don't have enough stress in our lives, I saw some people said, I'm bored. This is exactly what happens. Boredom. I'm losing my notes here, sorry. Yeah, bored and unmotivated. I'm sure you've met people, they lost their job or they're in a job that's not motivating. There's not enough stress. You come up a notch, there's low levels of stress to the optimal levels on top. And in that area, you start feeling involved, interested, engaged, you're feeling effective. You're in a good zone there. You know, you're in a healthy zone. I don't want to call it good zone. You're in a healthy zone. You start getting in an unhealthy zone when you start making mistakes a lot, when you start losing things a lot, when you have more and more tension in your body and your body doesn't know how to let go anymore, where you stop taking care of yourself. You're getting more irritable. Maybe you're getting more anxious than normal. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed a lot or getting more negative than you're used to. And when you really have way too much stress, that's at the other end of the spectrum, you get exhausted. Your internal battery is empty. This is where you're going to burnout, what Mar talked about. But you could also get increasingly antisocial, for example. You don't want to see people. You disconnect. You might get sick a lot or start getting some chronic ailments, chronic sleeping disorders, depression. This is where you start to get concerned. So I just want to say, and maybe you could take the slide off, Mar, that so stress is important. It helps us get things done. Some of us pay good money for stress. Bungee jumping, jumping out of planes, makes us feel alive, right? And I promise you, your body will tell you when you're in the over zone, when you're in the over optimal zone. We just need to learn to feel and listen to our bodies. Okay, that's one important skill. Now, the key then is self-regulation, what I call self-regulation. So how do we bring ourselves into that optimal range when we've got over, right? When we're going over. And so one thing is to notice where you are in the spectrum, and we'll come back to this. We're going to do an exercise about this. And of course, teaching yourself to come back into that optimal range. But before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about technology, because one of the things that gets us out of our optimal range is too much stimulus. Too much stimulus, too much of the time. And one of the key ones, although it didn't come up in the cloud, is technology. And we are all using technology. It's become an extension of our body, actually. So that's why I'd like to invite Mar to talk a little bit about technology, why it's such a stressor, how it works. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. I think it's important for us to understand a little bit about the context we live in. And I want to break it to you. You have less control on your use of technology than you think. I don't know if this image that you're seeing on the screen of this kitten at night, checking something on her phone resonates with you. It does with me. With the Panama Papers, when I was working like 16-hour days, I would still go to bed with my phone and check Facebook for an hour. Because once I got into Facebook, poof, just like the time disappeared. And all of a sudden, 1 hour later, I would come back for air. And I felt very guilty all the time. I thought, what is wrong with me? I'm stupid. I've been here losing my time. And especially I felt that way the morning after, when I was like so tired, and again, 16-hour days. And I thought, what's wrong with me? I felt very guilty. But then I started reading about how technology works and how we live in the attention economy. And really, pretty much all our devices, all our apps are designed to grab our attention for as long as possible, because that's how they operate. That's how they make money. That's their business model. So that's why Netflix suggests another episode to watch just a few seconds after it's done. You're done. Actually, the CEO of Netflix said in 2017 that their biggest competitor was sleep. He didn't say Amazon Prime. He didn't say HBO. He said, our biggest competitor is sleep. Therefore, it is very important that we really think about the relationship that we really want to have with technology, so that it is a conscious relationship and not a relationship where the big tech giants and their engineer experts on attention and their algorithms and their artificial intelligence wins the game. We really need to take control of our attention. Actually, this conversation is very timely because tomorrow, Netflix is releasing a documentary called The Social Dilemma that is actually going to explain very well how technology, the tagline says there in the image, the technology that connects us also controls us. And let me say here, I love technology. I love that we are connecting from different parts of Europe today using Zoom, and I'm here in my house, I'm talking to you all. I love this. I love the hyper connectivity and how we can connect to each other. It's just because that's the world we live in, we really need to rethink our relationship with our devices. And it's more important, I believe, for journalists because of the situation we've been mentioning throughout this webinar. Also very important because technology has an effect on our brain. It affects our brain and our body. And let me just tell you a little bit about how it affects ourselves. And one of the things that is actually pretty shocking, it was pretty shocking to me when I learned about it, is that it has been proven that when we check email, or most of the time that we spend on screens, most of us stop breathing for a few milliseconds. It's what it's called email apnea or screen apnea. The breath is key to regulate our stress. Breath is key to activate our calm system, our parasympathetic, I cannot say it in English, parasympathetic system, thank you. And basically just this system that helps us calm down, that tells the body everything is okay, you should not be on alert, you can keep going. So imagine how many times we check email a day. Imagine how many times we stop breathing or hold our breath or start breathing shallow. Then you do the count of the effect that has in our body. And it has an effect also in our nervous system and therefore in our immune system also. Something else that technology does is something that psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. Every time we get a notification, we get an alert, every time we just get an email or a Slack message, we go there like, oh, our brain is like, oh, something new, I want to know. And sometimes it's actually good. And, you know, our brain just releases some dopamine and says, ah, I love this, right? When you get a message from a friend that it's, you know, a happy message and, you know, it just, you know, great reward to have. At the same time, the reward is not always nice, right? Sometimes it's your boss or as freelancers, we don't have like boss, like the multiple editors we deal with, asking something late at night, changes your plans. So sometimes it's not as nice, right? Or sometimes, you know, we think it's something important and it's not. So it's like, oh, I'm not so happy about it. That's what it's called, intermittent reinforcement. Because sometimes we get good news, sometimes we don't, and sometimes we get dopamine and sometimes we don't. Basically, that has an effect on us that we just check more. It's been proven on rats. It was proven many, many years ago. And when rats knew what they were getting, you know, in the experiment, like food, every time they pressed the button, they would get food. All good. They just click the button when they were hungry. When rats didn't know, every time they hit a button, sometimes they get food, sometimes they didn't, then, you know, they were clicking all the time. So we are like rats clicking for food all the time because dopamine is also very addictive and it's great. It's just, we have too much stimulus for too long and it's making our brains go a bit, you know, disoriented at least. And also, you probably are seeing it yourself. Our attention span is decreasing. During the pandemic and during confinement especially, the searches for how to focus at work increased 300% since February. And it's also affecting us in the long term, not just through the pandemic. I don't know if you know what is the attention span of my generation, the millennials. Some of you are millennials in the call. I don't know if anybody wants to put in the chat some guesses of the number of seconds millennials can pay attention to for. Well, according to Google, and actually to this French journalist, Bruno Patino, I recommend his book, which is called The Civilization of the Fish Memory. I don't know if it translates in English. I know it's in English and in Spanish. It's really good. Actually, Google has estimated that the attention span of millennials is 9 seconds. So neither of you here in the chat have actually, you know, made the correct guess. I would not have 9 seconds. That's a lot. And that's why I really, you know, want to give you a lot of tips so that you take control of your attention, and we'll go over them in, you know, in a bit later in the webinar. But I wanted to give you the main tip that works for technology and I guess for everything else. It's the power of the pause. When we have time to feel ourselves and to think what we want to do, we can decide how to respond instead of just reacting. So how do we do that? Well, my recommendation is that you try to have as little notifications as possible when you work on something you need concentration on. So that's difficult because we're freelancers and it's like, well, I don't want to miss that email. I don't want to miss that tweet. Well, maybe you're writing an article. For how long can you stay without email? Is it 1 hour? Well, then close your email for that 1 hour. Do you need to check Twitter every single minute, or you can stay for that hour without Twitter and then you come back? Actually, bulk checking has been of emails and notifications on WhatsApp has been a great addition into my practices, and I totally recommend it. And also try to also have space between you and your phone. So for example, I have WhatsApp, which is, you know, a great distractor in my life. I have WhatsApp inside a folder, no notifications. And that way, you know, when my phone is, you know, closed and I just have it upside down, I have 3-4 seconds to think, do I really want to do this? Because in my automatic pilot, I just go for that WhatsApp, you know? But if I have a few seconds before I reach it, I can answer that question. Do I really want to do this? And you know what? Most of the time, the answer is no. So Kim, I don't know if you want to say a little bit more about that great tool, the power of the pause, that it's actually free, that we can tap into.
Actually, I want to suggest after all of this, let's take a moment to digest. And this is another thing. There's so much stimulus. There's so much information. Take a moment to digest. This is not in the plan and we're running late, but I don't care. So take a moment. To just stop. Take a breather. Bring your attention downward. Feel your feet out of your head, into your body, down. And just take a few breaths. Notice your heartbeat. Notice if there's any tension in your body. It's okay. Just notice your breath. And if it's okay for you, I'd like to invite everyone to take a nice deep breath in and a breath out. Yeah, breath by breath. So let's get a little bit more into stress, and hopefully this framework is going to be helpful to you. So we're going to dive in a step deeper. So Mar, if you can bring up the graph of the window of tolerance. I really hope this is going to be a helpful framework and reference for you all. And I'm going to talk you through it. So in the middle is the window of tolerance. And that's that optimal range that we saw in the other graph, where, you know, your heartbeat is beating fast, but it's not racing. Where your breath is maybe shallow, but you're not holding your breath. Where you're feeling energized, but you're not feeling over agitated. There's pressure, there's stress, but you know, you feel like you can deal with it. That's your window of tolerance, right? So when we get out of our window of tolerance, that's when our sympathetic nervous system gets turned on. Mar talked about the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the rest and repair. That's when the sympathetic is la, 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 run for your life. And you know what? There are two aspects to the parasympathetic. So when we get triggered and over-triggered, there are two ways to go. And we are hardwired for this. We are designed this way, all of us, due to millennia of evolution, which was really smart survival strategies. So one way is the hyperarousal. You see that at the top, right? So some of us go into hyperarousal, and that's when we feel extremely switched on. There's excessive arousal. That's one of my primary reactivities when I perceive a situation as being like too much. I can't deal with it. And we go, in those who get into hyperarousal, we go into fight and flight. And probably some of you have heard about this, but fight is when you're literally moving against. In the body, it feels like this. It's when we challenge, we want to be right, we get argumentative, we disagree. Some of us even initiate conflict or speed up conflict. We take a competitive stance. We push against authority. Maybe some of you recognize that. Some of us go into and then there's that's the fight. There's the flight. The flight is literally you move away. Right? You want to avoid conflict. You stay silent. You don't say anything. You're more of an observer than a player. Maybe some of you can recognize that or know people who react that way when they're feeling challenged or threatened. Perceived or real? Perceived or real? Then there are others that go into hypoarousal. That's the bottom part of the screen. But that's also when we're in that, you know, sympathetic nervous system is turned on. But the hypoarousal, it's like, you know, when a crowd is running and you feel like you're getting crushed, like some people just stop, it's that freeze. And the freeze is you're feeling spacey. You might feel zoned out, like you're not there anymore, or numb, like you're not feeling anything. You can get pale. Some of us get pale. Some of us blank out. Our response is really slow. And we literally disconnect from our body and our emotions. We withdraw from ourselves, but we also withdraw from what we're around, and we avoid. So hyper or hypoarousal, yeah? So I want to do a little exercise now where you can begin to discover, yeah, what that is for you, what that feels like, not in your heads, but in your bodies. So if it's okay, I'd like to invite you again to close your eyes, just so you can let everybody in the screen and everything, just, you know, zoom in on yourself. And take a moment to ask and check in with yourself. Where am I right now in my window of tolerance? Feel for tension in your body, heart rate, breath. On a scale of 1 to 10, if 5 was in the middle of the window, where are you right now? And dropping any judgment about it. And now I'm going to take you a little bit further in the experiment and the investigation, keeping your eyes closed if that's okay. And you can even turn away from the screen. And I'd like you to take a moment to imagine a situation yesterday or an event that triggered you, that you found challenging or unpleasant, a situation that you feel you can tolerate now. And just notice what happens in your body when you think about that situation. And again, markers are breath, heart rate, tension. Feel for those and notice hyper or hypo. Maybe temperature change, energy change in your body. Just notice that. And now let that go. Let that situation go. And I want to invite you to imagine a pleasant something. Imagine a person or a thing or a place that you love. A person that's easy to love. A place that inspires you. Or a pet. And notice what shifts in your body. And perhaps you notice now markers of when you are popping out of your window of tolerance, and how just putting your attention on something pleasant can bring you back. So where our attention goes also very much affects how we feel. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So window of tolerance, when am I popping out We're either hyper or hypo. And last thing I want to say is, there's nothing wrong with any of this. In fact, when we developed our tendency, whether it's hyper, hypo, or a mix of them, we developed them at a very young age for a really smart reason. It helped us get through a really difficult situation. It was an intelligent survival strategy. We maybe even learned it from people around us. It was really smart. We are adaptive creatures. The problem is that tendency might not be helpful in all situations in your life. They might be really helpful when you're really under threat, but sometimes we feel like we're in a threatening situation or a really challenging situation, but it's more perception than reality, and then it doesn't help us. So we're in a meeting, and instead of speaking up, we shut up, right? When we really want to say what we have to say. So I just want to say, these were smart, intelligent ways of survival. They're just not helping us in all situations. And we're adaptive creatures, so the good news is we can change. Our brain can change. Our bodies can release tension. We can learn to move and think in new ways. So we're lucky. Okay, I'm looking at time here. Like okay, Mars time, okay. I'm feeling okay. I can go back into my window of tolerance. Thanks. Help me, Mar, where are we?
So us journalists are in a great position because most of the skills that we have and most of the skills that we develop in our profession can help us deal with stress. And that's why we created the self-investigation method. And I think, Kim, maybe you want to lead us into what the self-investigation method is.
Yes, so thanks, Mar. So you see, I was popping out, right? I was like a little scatterbrain, couldn't remember, so I asked Mar to help me. Now I can relax. Thanks, Mar. So let's go to the self-investigation slide. So we developed a method that we're pretty excited about. I hope it resonates with you. So if you, it's a framework to help you relate to stress in a healthier way. So Mar, if you can bring it up. So look, journalists, you're already practicing things that will help you in stress management. So you guys are lucky. You're all in a good place. You already know what you need. You just have to focus it on something else. So the first skill and capacity you have is gathering facts, right? That's like a key skill that you have around issues that you're covering, people you're covering, etc. So you've already got the gathering facts skill. The other skill that's really important is teaching yourself to practice and to improve. Now, you've done this your whole life related to journalism, learning how to write, learning how to interview, learning how to collect data, whatever it's been. It's the same with stress management and personal development. It's developing new skills and practicing and developing and improving and then growing on that. The other is mindset. I mean, I hope most of you, when you're interviewing someone and looking into issues, are curious and open, right? You're not coming with already judgments about how things are supposed to be. You're present and open and curious. And the last is motivation, right? Journalism, and especially for freelancers, this is not easy. So you need to remind yourself, like, why am I doing this in the first place when times get tough? There was a reason. It was nurturing you, it was inspiring you, whatever it is. So these 4 capacities that you already have, you've been putting them to use in the world outside of you. Now, for the stress management, you're going to want to use those skills and direct them towards you. So gathering facts, this is what we've started to do, noticing and learning What are your stress reactions? Body, mind, emotions. What are your impulses? Practicing. Some of us have been practicing, you know, grabbing a glass of wine whenever we're feeling tired at night. No problem with that, but if it becomes a glass to 2 glasses to 3 glasses to a bottle, well, we know we've got a problem. So we need to teach ourselves to practice something new. Replace it with another practice. Practice, practice, practice. Motivation. I first want to go to curious and open mindset. As I said from the beginning, you stop, you notice, drop the knife. Be curious about like what's happening in this amazing body and mind of ours. Like, wow, self-inquiry. What's going on with me? Why am I responding? But when you're curious and open and compassionate, these are the seeds for allowing yourself to change and do something new and adapt, rather than saying, damn it, I'm doing it again, or damn it, look, why am I so tight? And motivation to keep, because it takes practice. And, you know, some things come easier than others, so it doesn't have to be like torture, but it takes time. And between a month and 2 months of choosing one thing and teaching yourself to do it differently, choosing one new practice and practicing, you need to be motivated. So reminding yourself, why is it so important to me to take care of me? Why is it so important to me to like manage my technology better? Well, usually it's because it improves your quality of life, but not only that, we don't live on an island. If you're happier, if you're more balanced, if you're clearer in mind, it is contagious. It affects who you live with, who you work with, how you work. You bring your whole self to everything you do. So this is what we're going to be looking into. So key tips, here we go. So what can you do? So because I haven't written down more, yeah. So first and foremost, and I've already been saying this, self-awareness inquiry. Anything you can do, and we're going to be doing this in the meetups, to heighten your awareness of how your body reacts under stress, what are the thoughts that come into your mind, and your emotionality. Mine is anxiety. My mind under stress is lack of self-worth. I'm no good, never do things good enough. That's part of my big ongoing story. And then I notice what impulses, what habits you develop under stress. Yeah. So that's the baseline. This is very important. And then the other thing, as I mentioned, and in our self-investigation method, is you notice what you're doing and you decide, this is what I want to do differently. This is how I'm going to do it. So practicing a new way of being and doing it. And let's make it small, people. Sometimes we want to change the world. One thing. So if you don't come back to our meetups, after this, decide one thing you want to do differently and how you might want to do it differently, and practice it every day for at least a month, if not 2 months, and do what you need to remind yourself and motivate you. Other tips, a little more concrete. So how can you get back into your window of tolerance? We'll be talking more about this in the meetups, and everybody has their own way, but one way, and I hope you notice, by just stopping, slowing down, checking in with yourself, checking in, heart rate, breath, tension in my body with curiosity and kindness, dropping the knife, can already go a long way. Most important, the power of a pause, micro breaks. They don't have to take forever, even 2 minutes to regulate your energy. So you figure out for yourself, what is a micro break I can take that helps me get me back into my window of tolerance? Next one. Very important, turning on and tuning into your senses. This is one way to get back into your window of tolerance, to calm your nervous system. Listening to music, seeing nature, not just being in it, but seeing nature. petting an animal, anything, hugging, sensation, anything that turns on and tunes you into your body and your senses is key. And some relaxation techniques. And this you have to figure out what they are for yourself. There's no one recipe. For some people, it's breathing techniques. For people with trauma in their bodies, breathing might be like overwhelming. Meditation for some people, not everybody. Mindfulness meditation has been key for me. That's why I'm a mindfulness-based stress reduction trainer. Movement, but I'm not necessarily talking about but it might be other movements where you can start sensing your body. But sometimes it's getting that energy out. If you're in hypo-arousal where you're not feeling, you're zoned out, maybe you need a little agitation, just a little agitation to get you relaxed, actually. So it's trial and error, it's figuring out. But these are some of my tips for you, and you'll get much more in the meetups.
So let's do a micro break together before we move on with the session. And this is a micro exercise you can do when you're in your computer. We spend a lot of time in front of our screen and in front of the computer, especially these days. So play along with me if you want. I invite you to play along if that's what you want to do. Normally, when we're on the screen, we just are looking at the camera or looking at the screen, replying emails, writing an article. I encourage you to just turn away from the screen. Just look maybe to the side and just have a soft gaze. Look at the horizon, whatever that is. Don't focus your attention or your eyes on anything. Just rest your eyes for a bit. And while you're there, bring your attention to your breath. Notice your breath. Notice if it's shallow or if it's deep. Now you can come back to the screen. Just come back to this meeting and look at each other. And this took us just, a couple of minutes or even less, just a minute. And that's something you can do in between calls. That's something you can do in between, in between articles or, in between activities. And it just, hopefully it was helpful for you. To me, it just helped my eyes relax a little bit. I feel more calm also, and it helped me connect to myself. So hopefully you can take this exercise into your routine. And before we go into questions, which we will take on now in a few minutes, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about Maslow. I don't know if you know who Maslow is, but maybe Kim, you can introduce him to us.
Mara is so sweet because I was supposed to say this before and I forgot. So Maslow.
But don't give away. Don't give that away.
It's not important who Maslow is. You can look it. I'm like transparent here. Maslow. It's not. You can look up Maslow. Can you bring up the thing?
Oh yes. It's actually I pull it up and I forgot to share the screen because you gave away my trick, Kim.
So Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So why we sharing this with you is these are basically these 5 levels. These are our 5 key needs to be a balanced, happy, healthy human being. And the needs, so listen, this is the important part. The needs lower down in the hierarchy must be satisfied before we can attend to the needs higher up. And if you look at the very bottom, if you're not getting enough food or the right kinds of foods, if you're not getting enough rest, if you're not getting enough water, if you're not able to bring yourself into that window of tolerance, then the things that you're really freaking out about, which is your safety, job, money, a roof under your head, right? You cannot effectively be generating and going after those needs if you're physiologically not in a balanced place. They have an effect. I saw some people also talk about a stressor. Love, connection in my life, love, belonging, a key need, yes. Lack of self-worth, some people mention that as a big stressor. Yes, self-actualization, feeling like I have a purpose in life. All of these things are important. But I come back to saying you are as important as your work. It starts with the bottom of the pyramid, the physiological. So all the tips I've mentioned are around stress management, but of course, sleep, food, enough water is also part of that equation. So this is a good barometer to see where, you can look at these different, where am I at? Which one needs attention? But noting that the needs at the bottom, unless you're in balance there, it'll affect your ability to meet the other needs and fulfill those other needs.
And it's interesting because there's also a Maslow pyramid or hierarchy of needs 2.0, which is connected to technology. Here are the digital needs and how newer generations perceive their needs, based on the part of the pyramid. And as you can see, also as freelancers, we, our way to interact with, our editors that we are working with is through technology. And then there are several apps that fulfill the different needs. So it all connects to technology in today's world. And that's why we are going to talk a lot about technology throughout this course. But I wanted to start with a transparency exercise. This is the last 7 days in my cell phone. So I'm not perfect. And, I think nobody is perfect. Even though, I've changed the way I interact with technology and I'm more conscious about how I interact with it. In the past 7 days, I've spent an average of 3 hours and 30 minutes a day on my phone. And most of it, it's actually on social media. But actually I don't have, Twitter. I don't have Facebook. I don't have Instagram. I have no other social media other than WhatsApp. So that's why you see that face of horror face is wow. In the past 7 days, I've spent 16 hours on WhatsApp. That's basically more than 2 hours a day on WhatsApp. And the reason why I'm showing this is because technology can help us be more aware. We're talking about being self-aware, and sometimes our perception is not reality, and technology can help us see if our perception is close to reality. So I would encourage you to look at your phone after this webinar and look at the time use app or time management app, I think it's in English, or digital well-being app if you're using Android, and see if your cell phone use is what you think it is. There are also apps to track the time you use on your computer. So it is ironic, but it's it's good that we use technology to help us manage technology. And we're going to be covering throughout the meetups a lot of tips on how to deal with technology better, although I wanted to give one that is actually mentioned in the chat, which is try to plan time without technology or without screens or without a cell phone. This is called digital Sabbaths, taking the Jewish tradition of Sabbaths, a day without electricity. Well, let's do a digital Sabbath. Maybe let's take the whole Saturday without cell phone or without screens. If you have kids, you can make it a fun experiment in the house. And maybe a Saturday, a whole Saturday is a lot. It can be just, okay, 2 hours of Friday nights. And that really, really, really helps. Calming down, connecting to our body, coming back to our senses. So all those tips that Kim gave a little bit earlier get triggered if we have times without distractions, without technology distractions. And some of you mentioned in the chat that you do that, but then you have fear of missing out, what it's called the FOMO, right? Well, for that, I really encourage you to schedule the times where you check on technology. So as I said, what I actually do is I do email checking in budgets. So I say at the beginning of my day, I check email, and that takes me like almost an hour to check my email at the beginning of the day. After that, I close it. At lunchtime, I check it again. Then I close it. Then at the end of the day, I check it again. That's my workflow because of how I work. You need to find your own workflow. So I would encourage you to do that as much as possible with email notifications or social media and WhatsApp. As you can see, I also do that with WhatsApp, because if not, it just takes my attention away throughout the day. And I think that with that, it's actually a good time to hear from you. So the first thing we wanted to do is that we want to invite you to put in the chat suggestions of things that have helped you have a healthier relationship with technology or deal with stress. You're already doing that, so it's great. Thanks so much. I think that the Freelance Journalism Assembly is about community. It is about how we can help each other. And as you put some suggestions in the chat, we also want to open a question and answer part, and then we will have a little exercise at the end before we all leave. But yeah, maybe let's open it up for questions. I don't know, Vera, Anna.
Thank you, Mara and Kim, for this part of the session.
Thank you for... Yes, and no worries, Anna. And it's a great moment to go through some of the comments and questions. We actually have more comments because people are sharing about their own experiences, trying to disconnect from technology or to take mini breaks, or how they felt about the hierarchy of needs and the blocks. But we do have a question from earlier in the session from Katarina. And she mentions, it might sound a bit unrelated now, but it makes complete sense, and at the moment was very valid. So is there any way to work on a big project like the Panama Papers without working 16 hours a day? Are there big projects experimenting with bigger teams, less workload for each member, etc.? So I believe this question was specifically for you, Mar.
Yeah, so the answer is I don't know if it's possible. I haven't tested it myself. I just know it didn't work out for me, and it didn't work out for many of the people in the Panama Papers team. We were about 400 journalists working together in all parts of the world, and I know of many other colleagues that suffered from stress and had stress-related ailments and issues. Actually, just to give you an idea, out of the 5 people in the leadership team at ICIJ and also Süddeutsche Zeitung, 4 out of those 5 people had to take a long break after the investigation. And a long break normally meant they went for a fellowship in the United States, because there are these great journalism fellowships, Neiman, Stanford. There's also one at Michigan, University of Michigan. And I took a long break to the point that, I haven't come back to a newsroom since then. So that's just a figure I can give to you. But what I would say is, I think that these big investigations and these big collaborations need to think about the well-being of their teammates. And I think that we need to think more and more about that, and maybe establish guidelines about what are the limits and put digital boundaries. And when should we distract people? When shouldn't we? What are the expected times to respond? And I think that it is very important that is done. And we set up norms also around our digital communications, and we establish a communication charter. If you're working on an organization, well, with them, but we are freelancers. I'm a freelancer myself right now. And what I do is I actually tell people what to expect. So in my email, I have an auto reply that says, I only check email sporadically. I need to update it because it says a few times a week. It's no longer that. I check it a few times a day. But, I'm not checking email all the time. So I, give this auto reply telling people what to expect, which is, I'm not going to reply every second I get an email, just to relax. And for urgent matters, I put my WhatsApp number. My number, and I say, call me on WhatsApp because it's international and it's free. But, here's my number. Call me if it's urgent. And you know what? I've been doing that for the past 2.5 years. And, only a couple dozen people have reached out to me saying, no, it's urgent. So I think we need to establish guidelines for better well-being, for digital boundaries, and communicate that with the people around us. And depending on your clients, you might be able to do that too with the newsrooms and media organizations you work with. And important to have those conversations so that we don't have the staggering figures that I mentioned as a result of the Panama Papers in our mental health and well-being.
Can I add something, because I think this is really important? Another side of that is starting to question our beliefs. And one belief I had for a long time was, it has to happen now. It has to happen now. So my whole, it's that dopamine that Mar was talking about. It's like every time we get something done, it's like eating a piece of chocolate for those who love chocolate. And so my body just, wanted more and more chocolate. And the thoughts were, it's got to get done now. And it felt great when I got it done until it was 10 o'clock at night, So it's also questioning our thoughts. Does it really need to happen now? We get really accustomed to doing things a certain way, to the same thoughts, the same patterns of how we operate. And to do that, we need to slow down and notice what's driving this behavior that's not longer serving us. Some of that is thoughts.
Thank you very much, Mar and Kim, for those words. So we don't actually have more questions coming from the chat. I guess if it's okay, time-wise, we can open the space and a couple of people can ask their questions. What we do have, and I invite everyone to read the chat, is a lot of tips on how to do the mini breaks, on activities that can help get your mind off your screens, or have a moment a day to just contemplate, just look into the void, take a walk. So let me know how you would like to go about this, but it would be great to hear some of the voices that are joining the session as well.
Yeah, maybe you kind of mute yourself or raise your hand if you have a question. It doesn't have to be all about technology. You can also share your experience, share something you're struggling with, and maybe we can help you live. So just, again, raise your hand or unmute yourselves if you have any suggestions too.
Or share success, something you're doing that's really, been helpful.
And in the meantime, there's a question there of what is Headspace? Headspace, it's an app that it helps you with meditation and mindfulness. And it has, as far as I know, it has 10 free meditations to help you meditating for 10 days. and then you have to pay. But you can repeat those 10 free meditations for as long as you want. I actually started meditating regularly with Headspace. The guy that does the meditations, his name is Andy, and I checked in with Andy every day. He has a great voice. A question, I see a question. At the moment, I feel like my safety needs aren't being met because there's latent concerns about the COVID-19 and global situation. Any tips for managing stressors that are truly beyond your control? Kim, you're an expert on that. So any tips on how to do that?
Well, I loved that that person said that's beyond my control, right? Yes, there are some things that are beyond our control and beyond our influence. So where we need to go is what is in my control and what is in my sphere of influence. I don't know what that person specifically was referring to, but there's always something that you can influence in what you do and how you choose to do things. That's right. The world around us and stressors are going to continue coming and going. So the one thing that you can have influence over is how you choose to relate to it. And it's not easy, and it's possible. And if this person is really feeling like they've really, feeling lost, then I would really recommend that you sign up for a coaching session or reach out for support. And the other thing I could say is when you're feeling like it's all out of your control, connection. Reaching out to someone that you can talk to, honestly, let your hair down. And maybe telling them if they have a tendency to give you advice to just shut up and just listen because you need to unload. So important also to help our nervous system come back to that window of tolerance. And I know that's hard in this situation, depending on where you live, to do that face-to-face. But I can also say that I was a little extreme in how I dealt with the restrictions around COVID-19. I live alone, so I really miss the human contact. And at some point I decided, you know what, I need to see some people. I was doing it safely, but I just made some choices that I needed to keep my mental and physical health. So maybe you just need to make some choices for yourself of how you need to help yourself best in this situation. I hope that's helpful to whoever who shared that.
What I would say is mindful practices and even some of the exercises and practices that we have done today or are going to be doing in the course can help you. And the key for them to help you is to practice them regularly, if you can daily. To me, at the highest stress point, meditating for 10 minutes a day before the craziness started. So my craziness started around 4 p.m. Europe, which is when people woke up 10 a.m. Eastern time US. So most of the ICIJ newsroom woke up at that time. And I knew like 4 p.m. was going to be, getting all these emails. You need to get these done. And, so I, meditated for 10 minutes a day. That's when I started with Andy and Headspace. You can do it by yourself. We also have recorded exercises and practices with Kim, and I love Kim's voice too. So I recommend you can do that. You can download them and do them, and we'll put the link in the chat in a second. But doing that maybe 10, 15 minutes before your craziness starts. And you know what? The longer I did it, the easier it got, and also the easier it got for me, because I would sit in front of my computer And that craziness was like, you know, have you seen Matrix, this moment, the Matrix, the movie, when, you know, Neo just starts like being able to control the bullets, and the bullets coming, but it like in slow motion, it's like, boo, 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 boo. It's just like, ooh. So that's how I felt. So actually, I totally recommend doing mindfulness if it works for you, because it helps you with like superpowers of like things like don't touch you that much, you know, or you see them coming, you're like, oh, my day is gonna be a bad day, oh, I'm gonna have a lot of stress, but okay, well, okay, I'm gonna get to it. So I think that that's very, very helpful.
And I just want to add on why it's helpful besides that, is when things around us are so like uncertain and out of control. The key to mindfulness and meditation is coming back to right now, right now. And right now, there's, God knows what's going on. Remember that map of the 60 seconds that Mars showed us in the internet world? Well, all that's going on right now. But right now, for us, is right here. And right now, we're breathing. Our feet are on the floor. That's the key. That's also true. There's all this shit going on, all this stuff. And this is also true. I'm right here, right now, and I'm breathing. And right now, it's okay.
And that is why this course is not just one webinar, like some of the other tracks in the assembly. That's why this is just the beginning of the journey. And that's why we're going to be meeting together to do all these practices that can help you cope at least through the month of September, and to talk to each other and meet each other and hear from each other, so that you maybe feel less alone and feel connected and learn from each other. So that's the importance of the meetups. I see in the chat a question about whether the meetups are going to be recorded, and unfortunately not. Because we really want to create a safe space where we can practice and be open to each other, following the community rules of the assembly. So we're not going to be recording those meetings. However, we are going to be sharing the presentations that we have, where we are going to have more tips and maybe some questions for you to do. So we'll also be sharing that in Slack, in the Slack channel, so that you can catch up if you cannot come. That person that somebody said in the chat that she's going to be following Slack, well, we'll post the presentations there, and you can do the exercise on your own. And I will encourage you to download those recordings from Kim, and you can be with Kim every day.
But I want to also challenge people. Right now we're going, oh, half an hour, I couldn't, I can't, if you really want to come, organize it. Just try and see, test it out. I had so many people said, I can't come to your training because of da. And I said, you know what? See, maybe you can, maybe my job, they'll never let me, nothing. Well, she asked, it was like, no problem. So if you really want to come and already there's that voice in your head, I can't, I dare you to try something new and ask for support to take care of the kids, or ask your colleagues, you know, could we rearrange things? Just see what might happen. It might not work, but it might.
So there's a question here, wasn't there a limit? No, you can come to the 7 meetups. I don't think there's a limitation. Anna, correct me if I'm wrong. At least we're far from the Zoom limit so far. So you can sign up for the 7 meetups. It's just you have to sign up through the Assembly website to get the reminders and to get the links, right, Anna?
Yes, I think Katerina is asking because we had coaching private sessions that we offer at the beginning. We had 15 spots, but they are fully booked. Those ones were limited. But for the meetups, there is not limit. So guys, we invite you, maybe Angie, you can share the link for them to yeah, have access to the calendar. You can attend as many as you want, because as Mara and Kim were saying, I think the most important is practice. So yeah, you can just attend. We invite you. I would like to go over a couple of questions that I think that they are important. Someone was asking or saying that for them it's really difficult to find the perfect moment to pause. And then she's saying, or he's saying, should I use an alarm, or that's adding more stress? Like the fact that saying, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then I have to meditate and I have to do this. So what's the best way to find that, that moment, or what is the strategy instead of an alarm? Personally, I use the post-its, or I let the things for my meditation just in front of me. So I think like, okay, it's there, it's looking at me, it's calling me. So it's not an alarm, but it's just like a motivation I have. So that's something like that can help. But I don't know, Mara and Kim, you have any advice?
So I'm more, depends on what type of person you are. I am an alarm person. So I actually, but it's just, I don't have like this nasty sound, like just put a nice sound. And it just goes, tick it. I don't know, I cannot reproduce it actually. But basically just go slowly. And I remind myself to pause and like stand up and go to the toilet. You know, sometimes I'm so deep into work that I forget to go to the toilet. And, you know, just maybe like walk around my house, which is very small apartment. Like I just like 5 minutes, you know, and that really helps me, because if not, I forget to take time to myself. Another thing that I saw in a retreat center I went, which I really liked, and I haven't done it so far, but maybe it works for you, is they had set time for breaks. So every time, no matter what, at noon, there was a 10-minute break. And the whole, you know, community that lived there in that place, in that ashram in southern Portugal, at noon, there was like a gong that sounded, and everybody stopped. There was a cafeteria, there was, you know, people working on wood. They all stopped. And then a gong 10 minutes later, and they came back. And I think that that's another way. It's like maybe you establish, you know, it's like you were at school, you know, it's like break time. And you just do it. And if you do it and follow it religiously and be, you know, that's another way to do it. I don't know, Kim, if you have any other tricks.
Well, I think this is a nice segue to a practice that I want to invite you to all do with me, which is a centering practice, which you'll find the recording on our resources page. And so, you know, do whatever works for you, but transitions. Like when you finish doing something, before you start doing something, use that moment as a break. You can clean yourself off. You can stop and do this centering. You know, we forget to transition, to just like finish something off, recognize that, bring ourselves back down to that window of tolerance, and then we move to the next. Maybe using that, just transitioning and being a little more aware of that could be helpful. But because time is running out, if I'm right, yes, Anna? Yeah, I mean, right? I'll do the centering practice. It'll just be a couple of minutes.
Yeah, if the participants agree, of course. We know, guys, that maybe you.
Oh, no. They have no choice in the matter.
But may I cut in
no
for
pressure,
a second?
Guys, but you cannot leave now. No,
sorry.
No, but I think it's a nice.
Sorry to just cut.
Sorry, Vera?
Yes. Sorry, there is like a forgotten question from the chat. I was wondering if Mar and Kim can also address this one, because there were a couple of comments around it. So Benedict says, for freelancers, missing news can also mean missing a business opportunity. Also, self-marketing seminars usually tell you the opposite, to be present and getting engaged with social media. How to unite these two contradictions of being able to disconnect and being present at the right moment. And yeah, Alban also agrees with this. So I wonder if you have any tips on how to cope, because I think a lot of freelancers may feel the same.
So I understand the issue. I'm a freelancer myself, and I don't think that there is an answer for all the freelancers. But one thing I've done, and I've been saying it repeatedly, is to really decide how I manage my time and be the owner of my time. That means, as I said, that I do things in bulk or in batches. Whatever frequency works for you. For me, checking email 3 times a day works. Maybe it doesn't for you. But if you stick to a time, a frequency that works for you for either checking email or checking social media, I really like, there are just a few things that really need immediate response. So I would encourage you to think, what is the frequency I need to be in contact with the outside world? And if once you've set up that frequency, put all those in bulk, right? So what it's not productive at all, multitasking does not work. It actually doesn't help our brain. It makes us less productive. So what does not work is checking email, and then, oh, social media, and then, oh, my WhatsApp. That actually makes us lose a lot of time. So the more you can put things together, the easier it's going to be for your brain and for being calm. And then you need to decide, when can you have times without distractions? Because it's scientifically proven that not being distracted or when unprompted helps calming down your nervous system, being more relaxed. So when is it possible for you? Then, organize yourself around it and do it as much as possible. And again, maybe you can communicate to some of your clients what is your availability. And without sounding, I'm not available, just do it in a way that says, if you ever need to reach me, call me, or whatever works for you. But so that you can own your time as much as possible and those distractions are minimized.
Okay, thank you, Mar. I think we can continue with the practice, Kim. Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're bringing this session to a close, and I'd like to offer this short practice to all of you. So if it's okay, I'd like to invite you all to make yourselves comfortable again, and your body will tell you if you're sitting comfortably or not. And if it's okay, close your eyes. Just take a couple of breaths. And I'd like to invite everyone to bring their attention downward, all the way down to their feet. Sense your feet on the ground, and if your feet are not on the ground, I suggest that you put your feet on the ground. Very important sense of groundedness. And from the feet, bringing and moving your attention up to your butt and the parts of the butt that are touching the chair or the sofa or whatever you're sitting on. So 2 points of contact, feet and buttocks. Grounding yourself there. From there, elongating and lifting your spine upward as if someone was pulling the top of your head upward to the sky. Maybe you're moving away from your chair a little bit. That's fine. Your back is moving away from the chair or the sofa. So a long spine. And at the same time, inviting some ease into the body by letting the face muscles go. Invite your face muscles to let go. Invite your teeth to separate so the jaw can hang. Notice if anything shifts. Inviting your shoulders, belly, chest to soften. So taking a breath in, elongating and lifting the spine upward, and on the exhale, settling down into gravity, settling down. And And doing this 2 more times for yourself. Breathing in, lifting. And exhaling, settling, and letting go. And last but not least, bringing your attention to the center of your chest and imagining that you have a light bulb there. Yeah, it might sound a little kooky, but stay with me. A light bulb in the center of your chest, and turn the light bulb on, shining the light out in front of you, to the sides and behind you. Don't have to try too hard. If nothing happens, that's also okay. So sitting here for a moment longer, grounded, long and dignified. A little bit more relaxed, and perhaps a little bit more open. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So these steps again are in this recording, and I just want to mention what the science behind this. You can do, once you learn these steps, you can do it in a minute. So sensing the feet, bringing your attention away from here, down. This immediately changes the energy in your body and calms, for most people, the nervous system. Not always. So you feel more grounded. Lengthening the spine. It's the bodily dimension of dignity in once. Ooh. But also it gives us a little shot of cortisol. Lekker. A little bit of that alertheit. But at the same time, we're saying, relax, darling. Letting go front of the body. Yeah? And that breathing, well, we know. It affects our nervous system. A little bit breathing in, a little bit of conscious breathing, breathing out. And the light bulb, well, this is opening up the energy center here, our heart center. But if that sounds kooky to you, don't worry about it. It's literally opening up your peripersonal space. So when we're tight, we disconnect from ourselves, but also everything around us. And this just, open up your field of connection and awareness. So you're a little bit more open and connected. And for some people with trauma, stress, or PTSD, that might be too much. Don't do it. Just listen to your body and take the parts of this centering practice that are supportive. Thanks for going along with this, and thanks for being here this morning.
Yes, and thank you for jumping into all these experiments. And those of you that have to go, we're just finishing the session. Just a reminder that you can sign up for the meetups on the website. Here's the link in the chat. We encourage you to come on Thursday. We're going to be setting our intentions for September and helping each other out. And then next week, we're going to be talking and learning about stress reaction versus stress response, and how can we move from reactivity into responding how we want to. And the meetups are a space to practice together and also to learn from each other and talk to each other. So we encourage you to come for those 30 minutes. Thank you very much again to EJC for organizing this. And back to Anna and Vera.